right, Matt, continuing with part 2 of your anime picks. I believe we last left off somewhere around the 1990s or thereabouts.
Somewhere about 1990. We did a quick rundown of 60s, 70s, 80s, and just to remind those viewers just turning in, we had a request from a viewer who has an affinity for anime, but didn't have a chance to watch a lot of it when they were younger and is just looking for some things that they might watch to make them love this animated medium as much as Patrick and Matt do.
Yeah, I was going to recommend Alien vs. Predator, the 10-episode animated series by Shinji Aramaki, but you can't see it
You
because
can't see
Disney
it.
doesn't want you to.
You can't. Only I have seen like little tiny snippets of it, but I'm not telling. Matt doesn't kiss and tell. Matt doesn't kiss and tell, so I won't tell. But I will tell you this: if you're talking about the 1990s in anime, and especially if you're talking about this in terms of what hit and like started to change the dialogue, so to speak, we ended in 1989 with Akira, and realistically, most foreigners probably saw that movie in 1990 or 1991 when it was touring. But it's a 1989 movie, so it doesn't count. I think we can say, are you sitting down for this? You've probably never heard of this one. This is a pretty obscure title. I think the moment when anime shifted from 1980s to 1990s is a little production called Ghost in the Shell by Mamoru Oshii.
Ghost in the Shell is the next generation of animated feature entertainment. The story centers around a life form that evolves from the internet, seeking asylum in a cybernetic human host. The semi-cybernetic team sent to counter this incredible situation are forced to question the meaning of their own lives while engaged in a non-stop action-packed fight against an unseen enemy.
All your memories about your wife and your daughter are false and are more like a dream.
With production values exceeding the legendary Akira and a gripping storyline, this picture represents the leading edge in the new animated entertainment genre and marks a milestone in the future of feature-length animated filmmaking for young adult audiences.
Ghost in the Shell. Released theatrically worldwide, fall 1995.
Do you know? Have you heard of this?
I know. The hype on it was so big because, like, was it Manga Entertainment?
It was Manga Entertainment. It was.
They were pitching it as, like, the next Akira. And I got to say, when I saw it, I was a little underwhelmed because, like, I had just seen Akira.
Technically, it's not on. It's more atmospheric than Akira. There's, like, montage scenes in it of just, like, the rain falling on this ruined, like, metropolis. It doesn't have the like, you know, grab you by the cyborg spine and shake you that Akira does.
But it did have a huge impact on science fiction. Of course, it led to things like The Matrix.
I'm sorry, Otomo Sensei of Akira fame, but Ghost in the Shell has a more coherent plot. It just does. And it's also arguably more relevant to our modern kind of plugged in, like that was pre-internet, but like everybody is just completely jacked into a internet like, you know, network on there to the point where like when you're having a conversation with somebody, it's like scrolling past your eyes when you're talking and like we're completely digitized. It's actually set, I think, only in 2023 or something like that. It's not the far future. It's based on a manga by Masamune Shirow of Appleseed fame. The comic book is like kind of wacky. It veers between like brutal ultraviolence and like total slapstick comedy. And then there's also this really weird like sex scene in the middle of it that didn't make it into the movie for pretty obvious reasons. The anime has none of that kind of hanky-panky going on at all. It's very kind of grim and dour, I would say.
I mean, does Oshii like hanky-panky? I'm trying to think of
I don't really think that's in any of his stuff, really. But the bottom line being, if you want to understand anime and especially anime's impact on the global fantasy scape, you have to watch Ghost in the Shell. And it's like, it's only an hour and a half long. It's not like a million episode long series. And it really kind of wrestled with these big questions like, well, if you keep replacing like parts of your body with like electronic parts, like eventually you're all electronic, are you human anymore? You know, this kind of like big picture stuff.
Philosophical questions that only the $6 million man had been addressing.
$6 million man. I think that was like just the budget for making Ghost in the Shell the anime. I'm assuming Major Kusanagi, the star of Ghost in the Shell, probably had a little bit more than $6 million put into her. But there's a bunch of Ghost in the Shell, like, you know, TV series that came out of varying quality. Some of them are really awesome. Like I kind of like the earlier ones. Standalone Complex.
I'm going to be that guy and say my favorite is Ghost in the Shell 2, Innocence, which I hated when it came out, but have since gone back to it and kind of think is one of the greatest.
That's a 2000s film, right? I like it, but it's a very different sort of film than the first one is.
Yeah, and still has, like, some cyberpunk goon shoot 'em up stuff that's sort of,
Yes.
like, very '80s and very OVA. Like, there's some talky philosophical stuff. I mean, I think if you watch it with the sound off,
Well,
it's pretty awesome.
Oshii to me, there's a lot of overlap between his kind of sensibilities and Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid. Like you have this kind of like overarching sort of political, anti-war, but like they're obsessed with the machinery of war kind of thing going on. Oshii always sets his films in this broader geopolitical context.
Matt, if only Japan would remilitarize itself, none of this would have happened in the first
Well,
place.
the Time magazine cover about Kishida the other week was hinting at that. I don't know how Japanese people actually feel about that. But speaking of Japanese people, we have to get into number 2 here, which is a very Japanese people movie. It is called Princess Mononoke, my favorite of the Ghibli films. Do you know?
Long ago, the land lay covered in forests.
This place is magical.
Back then, gods and demons walked among us, and man and beast lived in harmony. But now mankind's greed and hatred have angered the spirits of the forest.
Some kind of demon.
Once benevolent gods have become wrathful and destructive. Prince Ashitaka has been driven from his home by this evil.
He's obviously an outsider.
Now he must slow this hatred while battling the demon within.
It's eating me alive, and very soon now it will kill me.
The only ones who can help him are 2 women sworn to kill each other.
That woman is evil. Open fire.
What I want is for the humans of the forest to live in peace.
Princess Mononoke, Saturday night at 7:30.
This is unbelievable.
Part of a month of Miyazaki. See with eyes unclouded by hate. Only Toonami on Cartoon Network.
Princess Mononoke is a great film. It's set in like ancient times, like even like pre-samurai era when
Claire Danes was a headliner.
Yes. And like Billy Bob Thornton is in it. It's got the craziest voiceover cast.
Ancient history when Minnie Driver could drive ticket sales.
It is, to me, the superior Studio Ghibli film. It is a more complete story than something like, say, Nausicaa. It's more adult-oriented than something like La Puta. And did I pronounce that right? And it is, I think, it has more of a message than Spirited Away, much as I like that film.
Oh, like man bad, nature good.
Yeah, it's set in this world where, humanity or Japanity, is that the word I'm looking for? It's not even really Japan yet at this point. Like you still have these kind of like unassimilated native tribes wandering around, and then you have the stirrings of a kind of Japanese, government going on, and they're making like they've built a giant forge and they're making like guns out in the forest. They're chopping down all the trees to run the forges and stuff. And the animist gods of the forest are angry and are rising up against humanity. And the protagonist is he's not Japanese. He's like one of these like native peoples that isn't really explored very much in the dialogue or in the narration or anything like that. But he's actually not a Japanese person.
His name is Billy Bob Thornton.
His name is Billy Bob Thornton. That's right, and he's dressed like Billy Bob Thornton. Was this a preview to Sling Blade? Was this before or after Sling Blade? I can't. Gonna go in the forest. Gonna get some gods.
I reckon I'm supposed to kill you now, Forest God.
I always get Sling Blade and Forrest Gump mixed up in my head. Which is the one where a dude uses a like lawnmower blade to slaughter somebody? Is that the Tom Hanks movie or the other one?
Never go full Sling Blade, Matt.
Exactly. Anyway, Princess Mononoke, number 2. Number 3 is one that is near and dear, I think, to both of our hearts. It's called Ninja Scroll. Is this one throwing you for a loop?
Oh no, a Ninja Scroll. Man, what a classic.
What's your destination, stranger?
No place in particular.
I'm looking for someone, and you look exactly like him.
I'm a vagabond named Jubei Kibagami.
Die!
Know that they won't leave you alone. You have already killed one of the 8 devils of Timon.
Who are these 8 devils of Timon?
They are a group of ninja who work for the Shogun of the Dark. Timon monsters will be after the both of you. 3 of us have a common enemy.
Tell me, why did you join him, Jubei?
He hired me.
A ninja for hire?
Ninja Scroll is written and directed by Kawajiri Yoshiaki, okay? How do you even describe this film? It's so over the top. It's like what a V-Cinema direct-to-video movie in the 90s in Japan wanted to be, but couldn't be.
Pulp fiction, pulp fantasy. I mean, he was inspired by Futaro Yamada. These kind of like pulpy tales in Japan, kind of like ninja adventure with a lot of sex and violence. So it is not an adaptation of one of Yamada's tales, but it's heavily inspired. The main protagonist protagonist is Jubei.
Yagyu Jubei was an actual real samurai slash some say ninja, like a historical figure in the era of warring states. He's usually portrayed in Japan with like one eye, like often a samurai sword, tsuba, like that kind of hand protector being used to cover up one of his eyes. But he was supposed to be one of like the greatest swordsmen of his era. And it's actually the Japanese title of the film is Jubei Ninpucho, which echoes both the kind of samurai slash ninja comics of Shirato Sanpei of the 1960s. And also it just sounds like a kind of more of a chambara, like a swords and samurai type movie title in Japanese.
Yeah, Yamada wrote a series of books called Yagyu Ninpocho, so it's a direct reference to that.
And the Jubei, Yagyu Jubei is the guy's name. Here it's written with the kanji for kaiju no ju, Jubei. It's kind of like, so he's like this monstrous Jubei in this. He's awesome. And it incorporates every, not American ninja, but like Japanese ninja stereotype that you can imagine. Like it has like the sexy female ninja femme fatale. It has like millions of tiny shuriken everywhere, kind of like flying around. It's interesting because like Americans and Westerners think they know what ninja lore is, but they basically only know it from like You Only Live Twice and like, Golan Globus productions of the 80s.
From a guy with a Garfield phone saying, I have to rebuild the ninja empire.
The ninja empire is evil. I have to reform the ninja empire. That is why I took away the golden ninja warrior.
Ninja Scroll is really worth watching, not just because it's kind of ridiculous and like nonstop, like breakneck action, but also because it's like how Japanese people see ninja.
And researching this title, I found out that it was one of the best-selling anime in America for almost decades.
Oh, it was huge. It was absolutely huge.
And that's really rare for something that was like completely an original IP, not based on a manga, not shown on TV from Harmony Gold or something like that.
It's not known in Japan. Like the only person I've ever met in Japan who really remembers it is Kondo-san, the guy who illustrated Hiroko in my book Ninja Attack. And of course, he loves it because he loves ninja and he loves, stuff like that. But I think this film is really important for a very specific reason, which is that Akira and Ghost in the Shell were kind of mainstream, like highbrow sci-fi experiences. Meanwhile, this film was completely degenerate. It's like the complete opposite. Like it's the kind of anime you don't take home to mother, to put it in Super Freak terms. Would you agree?
This is like one of those anime that had the not for kids sticker on it.
Yes,
but in watching recently stuff like Demon Slayer, there's like nonstop decapitations and people coughing up blood. Like it has all the violence of a ninja scroll.
Yes.
But it's like the primary audience for it is like elementary school kids.
Oh, totally. No, I mean, this film, I think it's more the sex scenes. Like one of the, spoiler alert, like the female ninja has been taking poison ever since she was like a little girl. So like now her entire body is so polluted that anybody who has sex with her dies. And like they send her in as like a lethal weapon. It's a crazy plot twist. There's a lot of things that would not fly in modern like entertainment of any kind. There's a lot of trigger warnings in here. It's like over the top. But in the 90s, this really kind of helped, along with Akira and Ghost in the Shell, kind of redefine what cartoons could be in the minds of Westerners.
I'm sure there's a guy who had like a college dorm. He had like, Reservoir Dogs, Goodfellas, Boondock Saints, and like Ninja Scroll.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, it's the kind of thing you can imagine, like, Tarantino had a poster of it on his wall or something like that. But speaking of wall posters, the next one I don't want to spend, we're going to go on to number 4 here. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because we have talked about it so much. I think we've actually devoted entire episodes to it. You cannot, period, full stop, talk about anime at all, and you certainly can't talk about 90s anime without talking about Evangelion, the TV series. Skip the movies, watch the TV series. Are you listening, Kyle? I think it was Kyle who sent in this request. Watch Evangelion, the TV series.
I think Kyle watched it. I think he said he actually did check this one out.
Okay, well, good for you, Kyle. You only have 4 to go. But Evangelion's really important because it kind of set the template for the way anime would be consumed and produced in the 2000s. And we're still living in that post-Evangelion world today. Evangelion is like a pastiche of director Anno Hideaki's love for like tokusatsu and anime, and like he kind of, and his own kind of struggles with depression. You have this depressed protagonist who doesn't really want to fight and is being forced to, and you have a fan base that is more focused on the female characters in their skin-tight plug suits or in their fetishistically bandage-wrapped, presentations than they are in the storyline or the robots like they traditionally would have been. So it's the beginning beginning of Moe, I think is what you can call Evangelion. Would you agree with that?
I remember when Evangelion hit Japan, there was like this otaku boom.
Yes.
Like it really legitimized an anime fan in a way that nothing had up until that point. For adults, like it was cool to be an otaku, that brief shining moment. And there was so much hype. We were hearing it in America, like this new show, Evangelion, man. I remember the first 2 episodes arrived at my door from ADV Films on VHS cassette. And I watched, I was like, that's it?
I'm telling on no, you said that.
No, but gradually as I kept watching, then about midway during the show, it goes bananas and beyond. But those first couple episodes, I didn't really.
Well, those are really straight. I think he had to kind of convince the investors and convince it's really obvious he didn't have any idea how the show would end, and they're kind of making it up as they go along. And famously, by the end, they literally didn't even have time to finish episodes. They're running like pencil sketches. Like the entire last episode is aired on TV was nothing but pencil sketches.
If only they could have asked GPT Chat to write the ending for them.
The one thing I will say about this, and I think is really key to remember, is that the word otaku was literally a 4-letter word in Japan up until this point. It was like nobody said they were otaku. It was like a slur. Like if you called somebody an otaku, you're basically accusing them of being like a child killer, because there was a big case in the late 1980s involving a child killer who the media falsely, as it turned out, painted as being an otaku. So like it was a really, really radioactive term. But then when Evangelion hit, like you said, it just totally rehabilitated that, and it became hip to be square. And like I don't think you would see the kind of blossoming of otaku culture or wotaku culture, they kind of reclaimed the word, in the 2000s without that.
All right.
Okay, the last one. This one I think is going to be the most controversial on here, and it's a second Oshii Mamoru joint. It is Jin-Roh.
Jin-Roh.
I love Jin-Roh. I'm not talking about the shochu, Patrick.
Oh, you mean the one where nothing happens?
No, God. Oh, listen, see, I'm a grown-up. Here's the big difference between you and me, Patrick. I'm a grown-up. I'm wearing my big boy pants.
Couldn't they have done that in live action?
We are not men disguised as mere dogs. We are wolves disguised as men.
Not men.
A tale of a girl who dreamed of a love with a man destined to live as a beast.
Mother, what big claws you have! Mother, what big teeth you have!
Jin-Roh, the Wolf Brigade.
It's set in an alternate reality where Japan seems to have won World War II, and like instead of Japan becoming like blossoming in the post-war as a economic, industrial, cultural superpower, Japan is kind of like frozen in this perpetual East Germany, Iron Curtain, authoritarian state. And like it focuses on this brigade of armored soldiers, like SWAT team guys, who basically go in to break up protest movements. And this is kind of a cheat for me because I wrote an entire book that deals with, the kind of student protest riots and like how that inflected Japanese pop culture. And Oshii himself, I know, was involved in the student protest movements. So this is a very autobiographical film for him. And it's also kind of interesting. He's spoken at length about how he was on the side of obviously the demonstrators, but this movie is very much on the side of the SWAT team guys. So it's a really, I don't know, I like it. It's gray, it's grim, it's dark, it's grown up, it's adult. There's no moe in it. There's no transforming robots in it, although, that actually is a mark against it in my book. I think it's an amazing film.
No, I need to give it another chance. I mean, I remember when it came out, it was like, from the director of Ghost in the Shell.
Right.
Matt Labor. And it was like this very somber, post-war downer, basically. And actually, Oshii only wrote it. He didn't direct it.
That's right. I'm sorry. Oshii wrote it. You're right. Who did direct it?
Hiroyaki Okiura directed it. But it feels like a Mamoru Oshii movie.
Oh, it's 100%. Yeah. It's in that he was like, I think he was in the room at the time when it was being animated.
Yeah, I'm cool with Mamoru Oshii when he gets like weird and arty, like Angel's Egg I must have watched a million times. I should give this one another chance.
Okiura, he was like a key animator on Mospeada, and he was also a key animator on Akira. And he worked a lot with like Studio IG, Patlabor the movie. He's at Cowboy Bebop, the movie version. He was involved in like the original Blood, the Last Vampire. So he's a guy who is like super key person in the anime world of the 80s, 90s, and today. I like the movie a lot. I like Jin-Roh a lot. It's the kind of movie you can watch with people who aren't even into anime because it's just so political and it's so, atmospheric.
Because because the people who are into anime only want to watch the same 5 Ghibli movies over and over and over again.
Over and over and over again. But speaking of over and over again, you're going to get your chance. You're going to get your chance next time. I want to hear Patrick Macias.
My starter pack?
Your starter pack, exactly.
My Lick'em Stick fun pack?
Lick-O-Made, God. Yes, my tongue is going to be sandpaper. I'm going to be eating all of my Lick-O-Made listening to this like it's 1983. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, I'll give it a shot. I'll start thinking about which anime that. I'll try not to double up on ones that you've already mentioned.
No, you can. You actually can. You can, but you have to explain them in a different. You have to use different words than I used.
I'll use AI GPT chat to just kind of rewrite what you already said.
Remember when we asked it to do our profiles and like it just lied? I really liked that. Like it said like
Patrick Macias and Matt Alt are the founders of the Photonic Energy Power Laboratory and live in the Playboy Mansion.
Ah.